Okay, pretty good. Try to be in the middle of the screen here. Okay. So, anyways, sounds good. Sounds good. So, what's this whole idea of morning? Good morning, Moshe. Welcome back. Morning. Good morning with an OU as well. We're going to be dealing with morning, the laws of morning, just a little bit to bring us to this great mitzvah to visit and comfort the mourner. Who mourns in the Torah? Is there any mourning? Is it a mitzvah from the Torah, from the rabbis? What is this whole idea of mourning business? Yeah.
I can't remember the Torah.
That's thinking the Torah. Any stories you know?
Well, we know Yaakov was mourning of his son.
Yaakov mourned for his son, but he wasn't really dead.
Yeah, but he thought.
He thought, but not the best example, right? Because it didn't really happen. And what was he doing? It doesn't say really what he did. He just said, "I'm going to be sad," right? He was preoccupied. But okay, good. Who else? Who else in the Torah? Yeah.
Didn't Aaron die?
Aaron died.
Machon needed to mourn, no?
Right, but and
Also Miriam.
also Miriam, right? And how long does it say what the Jewish people did after Aaron died?
60 or 30?
Hmm.
I don't know. I remember the congregation.
I think for Miriam. Good morning. For Miriam, it says that they were 7 days.
Mm-hmm.
No, this is the truth is. There's a Miriam almost died when she was punished.
Yeah.
She got leprosy. It was like the, and then it was 7 days. She was outside the camp for 7 days, and everybody waited for her. So there's a little bit like of a mourning period. But when she actually dies, I think it says that they mourned her for 30 days, if I'm not mistaken. And then when Aaron dies, it just says they cried for him. I don't think it's a specific number of days. Why don't you bring out some Tanachim? Why should we? We have books. Everybody bring out a Tanakh. This should be, if everybody has the same copy, that'd be great. But I don't know if other copies are fine. You can find the. Who else mourns in the Torah? Rachel. Well, when Rachel dies, when she dies, Yaakov mourns for her. Right, he buries her. Does it say that he mourned for her? It says he relates how he buried. Can I have one too, please? That would be great. Thank you. Great, thanks. Okay, so open up to Sefer Bereshit. There's stories. Let's start from the beginning, right? So the first one to mourn in the Torah, anybody?
Oh, Sarah.
Good. Avram came lispod l'Sarah v'livkotah. It doesn't say how long. It says lispod. Lispod means to mourn. It's the beginning of Parshat Chayei Sarah in Sefer Bereshit. Good. When Sarah dies, Avram comes to mourn for her and to cry for her. So we already see that there's two things that Avraham did to mourn and to. Yitzchak mourns over her mother after she dies. Exactly the same Sarah that dies. If you look in Perek Chaf Gimel, that's 23 in Bereshit, verse 1 and verse 2. So Avram comes to mourn for her and to cry for her. And then he buries her, of course, so we see there's a mitzvah to bury. And after that,
What was the
chapter 23, Bereshit 23, verse 1, 2. And then it says that at the end of chapter 24, it says that Yitzchak married his wife, Rivka, and he was comforted after his mother's death. It doesn't really say that he mourned her. Mm-hmm. So that's Avram. So Yitzchak, when Yitzchak dies, it says that Yaakov and Esav came to bury him. That's much later. It doesn't say anything about mourning, about sitting in mourning. There's a story that Esav was making these lentils, right? A lentil soup. Hadom azeh. Yeah, no, Esav was drinking it. He wanted to eat it. Who was making it?
Yeah.
His brother Yaakov. Why was he making it? Doesn't say. But the Torah says, the Chazal say, our Midrash says that why was he making red lentil soup? Just felt like cooking?
No, it was for...
When do we eat lentils?
No, I don't know if it had something...
It's actually a custom until today to eat round foods upon morning. Morning. They say that this was the day that Abraham died.
Wait, is it because of...
And so the grandchildren... Yeah.
Roll.
No, that's something else. That's something else. There's a midrash about Esav's head, but where Esav's still alive here. He's eating soup.
Okay, well, that's what kindergarten.
Yeah, there's a lot of things mixed together. In any case, the idea to eat round foods, lentils are round, we have till today. What's the common food that's served to? There's something called the Su'udat Havra'ah. Su'udat Havra'ah is the first meal you give to a mourner after they come back from the burial. They're not allowed to cook it themselves. It's a big sign that the community has to support people who are mourning. And you serve them usually round foods. Today's chickpeas or eggs. Lentils are also kosher. Anyway, so that's one tradition that's what was going on. But it doesn't say that they were mourning in particular. Somebody else who mourned in the Torah, yeah.
No, what's the meaning of the round foods?
Oh, round. Yes, a good question. There's various explanations. Some people say, well, it just represents the circle of life, life, death, and part of nature. Yeah, there's no squares in nature. Everything's round. It's just, it's true. The square is significant. We mentioned it maybe, or we wanted to mention it. We were talking about the tefillin. The tefillin being some kind of a...
It's so unnaturally looking, but it's made out of all natural materials.
Right. But it's made as a box.
Used for exactly what it was made for.
Right. Yafeh. Might represent man's actions in service of God. The tefillin being, a sign to remind us of God's great hand in nature. Okay, so then... And then, where do we have more mourning? That's what I mentioned before. That Yaakov and Esav come to mourn. Sorry, you're saying Yitzchak and Yishmael mourn for when Avraham dies. Okay. Does it say any place where that they mourned specifically? So let's move ahead in the book of Bereshit. Excellent. It doesn't really say that they mourned for him, if I'm not mistaken. Let's... Yeah. We mentioned that just before you came in. That's right, but he wasn't really dead. Okay. One second.
So when Yaakov dies, and all his sons, they mourn over him.
That's good. That's at the end of the book of Bereshit. Yosef is the king of all of Egypt mourns for him. That's right. And how long is that for? Open it up.
30 days.
Was it 30? It's a little complicated. First, they put him in. They embalm him, right? The Egyptian custom. Well, there's a 40-day term. What chapter you have?
50.
Chapter 50, everybody.
No.
Which parsha? Oh, Bereshit. Okay.
Right, so David just answered, but when Rachel dies, it doesn't say that Yaakov mourned her. It says he buried her in Kever Rachel, or whoever it was said earlier. Okay. So when Yaakov dies, so Yosef tells the doctors to embalm him. There was a 40-day process apparently, and then it says that Egypt cried for 70 days.
Ah, for 70
So
days.
40 days, 70 days. And then they go up to the land of Canaan. They bring the body up to Israel. And there it says, in verse 10, chapter 50, verse 10, they came to some clearing area, and they had a tremendously big eulogy. And there it says in verse 10, Vayas laviv ever shivat yamim. He made a mourning session for 7 days. It's a little unclear. This mourning usually starts after the burial. The burial is reported only when they went to the land of Israel. Afterwards, it's just a little unclear. But that's the first time we have a mourning for 7 days. And then we were started with Miriam and Aaron. So skip ahead to the book of Dvarim, when they die at the I think it's Parshat Chukat, which is in the book of Bamidbar. Excuse me. That's chapter 19. 20. Where does it say that Aaron and Miriam died?
20.
You have it?
Miriam died there and she was buried.
What verse?
21.
Thank you. Yeah. How come I don't see it? What chapter?
Chapter 20,
Miriam died.
verse 1 and 2.
Oh, chapter 20, verse 1 and 2. Ah, I see. Okay.
21.
That's right. So it doesn't say that they mourned her, right? It says that they waited for 7 days when she got leprosy, but not that they mourned for her. And then when Aaron dies, it's coming soon. On the same chapter, chapter 20, verse 27, 28, Aaron dies, and then in verse 29, the end of chapter 20, it says, 30 days. All of the people cried for him 30 days. So what's this crying business? What's this avelut for 7 days, which they made? We had 70 days for coming out of Egypt. We see the various numbers. And and then at the end, when Moshe dies, it doesn't say that there's specific days of avelut. Moshe, nobody saw his burial place. So that's it. We have 30 days for Aaron. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Is it right that today, 7 Adar, is that Moshe died?
I don't understand the question.
Moshe Rabbeinu, he
Yes.
died on the 7th Adar.
7th of Adar, that's our tradition, correct. Which is today. Which is today.
Yes,
Today is the day
it's
of the
also
tradition.
The day he was
Yeah.
born, right?
Right. 120 years, yeah. Right, so it's a day to be involved in these type of discussions about the death and mourning. They say that it's part of life, right? Specifically, this is the day, by the way, that the Chevra Kadisha, burial societies around the world, have their yearly conventions or meetings because it's known as the day of Moshe's birth and death. So don't die today because they're conventions. There'll be nobody to take care of you. No, just joking. The truth is, unfortunately, we're in the middle of a pandemic, and they say the freezers are full. People are dying. In Israel, I'm talking about specifically right now. We're at the peak of or hopefully coming down from the peak of the damage from this wave of COVID-19. Yes, sir.
So I'm actually interested in joining the Chevra Kadisha.
Terrific, great. It's a big
How
mitzvah.
does one get involved?
Very big mitzvah. You go to them and say, I want to get involved. Yeah, it's not hard. There are many burial societies. Around Israel is probably over 250, something like that.
Yeah, but they're divided by city and denomination.
Correct. Denomination, city. There's different traditions, and from people coming from different countries. The Persian Jews, they have the Yemenite Jews. They each have their own burial society. Sometimes they even have their own burial plots, and there are parts of the cemetery. But there's also the standard. I think I mentioned another day that
The secular or non-denominational government one, correct?
for non-Jews, for non-Jews, yeah, there's they also get buried in Israel, and they tradition is that we don't bury together Jews and non-Jews, and so they have separate cemeteries for those who or can't prove their lineage. Yes, Hirsch.
So I was wondering, does Jews at the rivers of Babylon crying, does that count as mourning, or is that a different kind of sadness?
Yeah, I think it's a little different. When we say we're going to say in a few minutes, we're going into Rabbi Gun. It's not going to be a full lesson about the laws of mourning, because we only have a few minutes. I think the schedule is that at 9:30, Rabbi Gun is going to take us in to visit with Rav Bigun. And so just a few basic things, tips, maybe a little more practical than a wide-ranging. We started off trying to find it in the Torah. I'll answer your question first, though. Hirsch says the Jewish people mourned when they left Israel. And they went to Babylon, right? After the first destruction. And there's a few sentences which are traditionally said to the mourners when you're visiting them, when you're comforting them. So the Sephardic version is the shortest. I'll put them on the board so that you can learn them. And as I said, it's part of life, right? And hopefully, if we're lucky, we'll be able to bury our parents at the right time and not the opposite, chas v'chalila. So anyways, and other people and your friends, they'll be burying their parents. It's part of life. So what you usually say, so there's a few versions. The Sephardic version is the shortest. It's min hashamayim tenuchamu, which means from the heavens, may you be comforted. 3 words, pretty easy to remember. Everybody repeat after me. Min hashamayim tenuchamu. But most of us are not Sephardi. So let me tell you, the Ashkenazi version of that, it's a little longer, but it's very telling and it answers Hirsch's questions as well. Very good. Good. Close. I'll help you tighten it up a little bit. Hamakom.
Hamakom, place.
The place. Good. You know modern Hebrew. It means the place. It's one of the names of God. It's a nickname of God. Sometimes we call him the place. It's a little bit strange. It's a little bit strange nickname for God. But, the Mishnah in Pirkei Avot says that he is the place of the world and the world is not his place. Which means to say that all of creation is sort of within God. He is the place, the ground, the foundation on which he created the world. So the world sort of exists on the basis of the infrastructure of his existence. His existence brought into being our existence. So he is our place. And there's a lot more to be said about that, but I just want to continue the sentence. So Hamakom, he's called the place. Hamakom Menachem. It's the same word we have here. Nechama. Menachem, which means comfort or condolence, right? So God will give comfort. May God comfort. May Hashem comfort. Hamakom Menachem etchem. Etchem, what does that mean? It's just you in plural, third person, right? Second person, excuse me, right? Hamakom Menachem etchem. That's the equivalent, really. That's the Sephardic version. But we don't stop there. May Hashem comfort you. We add the following: betoch, among, she'ar means the rest of, she'ar, betoch she'ar, among the rest of, avelei Tzion veYerushalayim.
This is the
rest of
This
Zion.
one sentence, right?
the Ashkenazi version.
Ashkenazi version. Hamakom, everybody say it with me. Hamakom Yenachem etchem betoch she'ar avelei Tzion veYerushalayim.
Can you clarify what Amalek is?
Avelei means mourners. Mourners. Avilut. We said that he mourned for his father. He mourned for who was mourned for 7 days? Was it Aaron that was mourned for 7 days? What did we see here just before?
Yaakov.
Yaakov mourned.
He was mourned.
He was mourned for 7 days by
His sons and
by his sons. Right. So that was the first one.
Of that into the group chat. It's sending right now.
Oh, lovely, terrific. Thank you.
Thanks.
Unfortunately, it's-
Whoever's not in this group chat, speak to Moshe.
What?
It's in it's with a saf. Okay, either way. Hamakom Yenachem. Yenachem. What's my name? What's Rev Listman's name? Right. It's from the same root, I imagine. Someone who is comforting someone else is called a comforter. That's a Menachem. So, I guess it's my job to be a comforter. Sometimes I put on this blanket and I feel really in touch with myself.
What's the Sephardic version pronunciation?
Min Hashamayim, from the heavens, tenuchamu. Tenuchamu. Okay? It's much shorter. But, so back to Hirsch's question.
Yeah.
What are we doing here? All we needed is the first half. What's this? Among the rest of the mourners of Zion and Jerusalem, we're connecting the individual pain and comfort of someone whose relative died.
Who in this room is not?
One second. I'm in the middle of the talking, please. We're connecting up the individual pain and mourning to the mourning of the Jewish people. This wide-ranging national mourning. And that's something very Jewish, right? We're not just specks of dust that have no past and no future. We're part of a chain. We're part of a larger identity, a group identity. And unfortunately, in this context, we're a group of mourners. Right? We're all mourning for Jerusalem, for Zion and Jerusalem. We're all mourning for, the temple, waiting for it to be rebuilt. So we're all part of the Jewish collective. And so you say to the mourner, may you be mourned, but essentially you're not alone. We're all with you in your mourning because we're all mourning for something. Even if our parents are alive, we're mourning for Jerusalem, for the future of the Jewish people, right? So that's thank you, Hirsch, for bringing me into that. Okay, we only have a few more minutes. I want to make one point and then I'll take more questions, okay? There's a strange, little bit of a strange law that when you go to visit somebody who's mourning, so you'll see that the mourners sit on a low stool, that they're not supposed to sit on a proper chair. It's part of the customs of mourning. They don't wear proper leather shoes for the entire 7 days. You're familiar with these customs from Tisha B'Av. Tisha B'Av, we all are somewhat mourners for the day. So for the 7 days, they don't bathe, for pleasure at least. Of course, you can get clean. And they don't wear leather shoes and they sit on a low stool. And the truth is, they're not allowed to work. They're not allowed to be involved in anything other than talking about their deceased, their beloved one, and maybe bringing up memories about them. And sometimes that's the healthiest thing. Now, what a lot of people don't realize when you come to visit the mourner, your job is really to listen, not to speak. Not to speak. The halach actually says you're not allowed to start the conversation. You're supposed to come, sit there, be with them. If the mourner starts to speak to you, then you respond, of course. Then you continue the conversation. The point is not to get him distracted from his avilut. The opposite. The point is to maybe encourage him to could tell more. The best thing to say at a at a shiva is, please tell me something about your father or your wife in this case. Right? In this case, probably Rav Bigun will just start to teach us. Rav Lissman will translate. None of you are going to be expected to say anything, except at the end, we'll probably all recite this together. It's in your WhatsApp if you have your phone on you. Now I'll take some brief questions.
I don't know if you discussed it. Why is it 7 days exactly?
So I showed you a few precedents.
Yeah.
There's a debate how we paskin lahalacha. These are stories from Bereshit. We don't, we have Mishnah, Gemara, we have thousands of years of codified law. There's a debate whether or not actually biblically the mitzvah is to mourn for 1 day, maybe for 3 days, maybe for 7 days. There's a debate. Practically, whether it's rabbinic or biblical, the standard is that there's a period of 7 days which you're actually not allowed to work. As I was saying, you stay at home. You don't go out of the home. Here, it's an exception. Rabbi Gun couldn't really accept all the guests that come because he's a public figure. There wouldn't be room in his home to conveniently. He also has 12 children, and each of them have children and grandchildren. So they couldn't really all fit into the home, and so they make an exception when there's a need. And so he's using the room here in Machon Meir, and he goes home to sleep at night. But he's been accepting. I'm finishing. Yeah, I'm finishing. 1 minute. We have another minute on the clock. You're 2 minutes early, Rav Menachem.
Now it takes about 30 seconds to get up here and walk into the
100 seconds.
So we have to, anyways, we're going to go visit him there, and probably we're just going to sit there and listen. And hopefully, Rav, if anybody gets him to say some things about his wife or about what he wants to teach us about mourning, then probably will be Rav Lissman. But at the end, we'll all give him the wishes for comfort and condolences. And we can continue discussing this after. We'll come back here and we'll, take up your questions and maybe say a few more words about mourning before we go back to our regular scheduled learning. Okay, so we'll stop now. I think, David, we should probably stop the tape rolling, as they say. And